Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for joining us. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, leave me a comment below, and hit that little bell for notifications. And you can check us out on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Got to do a quick show today. I'm currently at the courthouse waiting to start motions hearing in a little, murder for hire case. But we got bumped to the end of it, so hey, at least we get to do a show today. There's a possibility we weren't going to do it at all. So first on the docket, Lori Vallow graciously rolls her eyes at the judge's restitution order for King Woodcock. The Mangione PR campaign continues, so he must be innocent. Sean Combs thinks he's special. This is not the way for a Marine to celebrate the Marine Corps birthday. How about a dying declaration you just simply can't make up? News we couldn't get to. Quote of the day comes from the United States Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And our dumb criminal is a former judge. Let's talk about it.
All right, lawyer.
Good day, everyone. Let's get straight to the docket today. First, Lori Vallow rolls her eyes at the judge's restitution order, right? In a display of unparalleled humility, Lori Vallow Daybell has been compelled to fork over almost $12,000 in restitution to Kay Woodcock, all tied to the inconvenient matter of Charles Vallow's murder back in Arizona. Now, Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Justin Boreski, ever the stickler for details, finalized this sum during a riveting Friday afternoon hearing. Now, Vallow dialed in virtually from the luxurious confines of the Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, and the prosecutor, Trina Kay, helpfully tallied the bill at $11,747.99, covering such essentials as travel, accommodations, therapy, and miscellaneous inconveniences. Vallow, in a stunning act of restraint, offered no rebuttal whatsoever. Given the flawless execution of my trials and the ironclad certainty that your honor will rubber stamp this anyway, no matter what or anyone else utters, I just stipulate right now. Vallow informed the judge with the utmost grace. Now, a jury had previously convicted her in June of conspiring to end Charles Vallow's life, and in a separate Arizona spectacle, she also earned a guilty verdict for plotting against Brandon Boudreaux, her ex-nephew-in-law. And then back in July, Boreski magnanimously sentenced her to life behind bars and slapped her with more than $534,000 in combined fines, plus those delightful extra charges. Restitution naturally trumps every other penalty we've so generously imposed, the judge declared at the hearing. It shall be extracted at the absolute maximum rate from whatever pittance resides in her prison account. Now, Daybell is already luxuriating in a life sentence in Idaho for the tragic demise of her children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan, plus scheming to dispatch Tammy Daybell, her husband's prior spouse. Now, when the judge politely inquired whether any substances, drugs, medications, or alcohol had clouded her judgment in the last day regarding the debate, Vallow appeared positively thrilled by the query. "Have I ingested any drugs, Your Honor? Is that the gist?" she reported. Might Your Honor recall that I reside in prison? Access to such frivolities is regrettably non-existent. Thus, no, I have not. The judge, unflappable as ever, appreciate the clarification. Pressed on whether coercion, threats, or force had influenced her choice, Vallow quipped, "Merely my trials, Your Honor," exerted that gentle persuasion. Post-hearing, Woodcock shared that Daybell was simply craving her customary limelight, a splendid waste of everyone's precious time. Further restitution awaits for Boudreaux, and Kay noted the figure remains under enthusiastic computation. So, yeah, I mean, clearly Lori Vallow is a horrible human being. But, I guess at this point she figures, what the hell does it matter? She's going to spend the rest of her life in prison and die there. So she might as well get a little flippant with the judge. After all, what's he going to do to her? Send her to prison? Next on the docket, the Mangione PR campaign continues. So he must be innocent, right? Isn't that it? So what a heartwarming tale of prison camaraderie. The relentless narrative persists. Luigi Mangione, the paragon of virtue, simply cannot be culpable for the premeditated execution he's charged with. After all, who could suspect such a benevolent little soul? at the Metropolitan Detention Center, Brooklyn, where he awaits trial on federal and state counts for allegedly gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione has apparently been crowned the unofficial ambassador of the facility, the very same lockup that once hosted Sean Diddy Do It Combs before his own legal spectacles. Now, according to his defense attorney, Arthur Adelia, who, to be clear, isn't on Mangione's payroll but chats up other inmates there, this 27-year-old accused killer is the epitome of a model detainee. He graciously mentors bewildered newcomers, easier their transition into the joys of incarceration by dispensing wisdom on do's and don'ts, much like a concierge at a five-star resort for the federally indicted. The guards, too, are reportedly smitten, showering him with praise for his impeccable rule-abiding ways. No smuggled phones, no illicit substances, just pure, unadulterated compliance, or so the story goes. But wait, there's a delightfully cynical counterpart from Staten Island attorney Lou Gelmiro, who suggests Mangione's popularity stems less from saintly deeds and more from his elevated jailhouse clout. High-profile slings confer instant celebrity status behind bars, and apparently, and let's not overlook the perks of bloated commissary accounts fueled by his affluent family's assisted living empire in Maryland. That Ivy League pedigree, courtesy of elite prep schools and top-tier university, translate to lavish spending on essentials like vitamins and soap, perfect for bartering favors and foregoing alliances. And then, well, there are the devotees. Mangione's fan club has generously deposited some $40,000 into his prison purse, alongside a deluge of up to 200 daily missives, some veering into explicitly amorous territory, one admirer allegedly offering to perform unspeakable acts. He even pens replies, confessing his newfound appreciation for Taylor Swift and Charlie XCL playlists on his tablet, prompted naturally by fabricated viral lists of his favorites. His admirers hail him a crusader against corporate malfeasance, etching slogans like deny, delay, and depose on bullet casings in protest of healthcare woes tied to his chronic back pain. Yet, in a shocking twist of judicial mercy, state terrorism charges were recently dismissed for insufficient evidence, and his legal team is pushing to nix federal counts and the death penalty over remarks by Attorney General Pam Bondi, who branded the act as cold-blooded assassination. Because evidently, being adored by inmates, guards, and obsessive pen pals is ironclad proof of innocence in the ever-escalating saga of selective sainthood. Next on the docket, Sean Combs, well, he thinks he's special. How utterly unprecedented. That's right. Sean Diddy Do It Combs is urgently requesting that a federal appeals court expedite review of his prostitution-related conviction and the accompanying 50-month sentence. Truly, he stands alone among the countless convicted individuals clamoring for swift justice. Please form an orderly queue behind Sean Combs. On Wednesday, his legal team submitted filings to the Second Court of Appeals, petitioning for oral arguments as early as April. They emphasize that Combs has already endured 14 months of incarceration and could qualify for sentence reduction through a substance abuse program, alongside credits for the First Step Act designated to facilitate inmates' reintegration into society. The objective, as articulated by his attorneys, is to secure a timely, The objective, as articulated by his attorneys, is to secure a timeline sufficiently prompt that any reversal of the conviction might allow him to reclaim time already lost to confinement. At 55 years of age, Combs was found guilty in July of orchestrating the interstate transportation of girlfriends and male sex workers for some prolonged substance-enhanced sexual activities across various locations, going over state lines, which of course is why the feds got it. Notably, he escaped conviction on the far graver charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, which carried the potential for lifelong imprisonment. Now, during the sentencing, the Bad Boy Records founder expressed profound remorse for conduct he labeled disgusting and shameful, earning a term of 4 years and 2 months from a judge who commended the fortitude of the women he testified. How touching that such contrition now fuels this race against the clock. I mean, really, Sean Combs, he thinks he's special. The appeals get done based upon who gets there first. But don't worry, he thinks he can just get ahead in front of the line. I think if he goes to each and every other person who has their case up on appeal and he gets permission, not only from their attorney, but from that defendant, then maybe he can move up the line. He shouldn't get expedited status. Next on the docket, this is not the way a Marine should be celebrating the Marine Corps birthday. Unfortunately, an active duty Marine has been apprehended following allegations that he journeyed from North Carolina to Indiana with the intent to abduct and sexually assault a 12-year-old girl from Lake County. The incident is profoundly inappropriate and obviously undermines the dignity expected in observance of the forthcoming United States Marine Corps birthday. William Richard Roy, 24, stationed at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, was taken into custody on Sunday in Durham, North Carolina, subsequent to location efforts by the FBI. Pursuant to the United States Department of Justice, the accused now confronts the ensuing federal indictments: enticement of a minor for a purpose of illicit sexual conduct, transportation of a minor to participate in illicit sexual conduct, interstate travel with the objective of engaging in a sex act with a minor. All bad. Obviously, we'll give him the presumption of innocence, but not looking good there, young Marine. Anyway, the inquiry commenced on Saturday upon receipt by the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Maryville Field Office of a report that Hammond authorities indicating that the missing 12-year-old was suspected to be accompanying Mr. Roy. The child's grandmother had earlier notified law enforcement of their disappearance that same day, and the United States Marshals ascertained that Roy had purportedly departed North Carolina via air travel to Chicago on October 24th, and the following day he allegedly utilized a rideshare service to proceed to Hammond, where he encountered the minor at a public park. Roy and the child are then reported to have returned via the same rideshare to a hotel in Chicago, remaining there overnight prior to boarding a Greyhound bus destined for Durham, North Carolina. Upon the bus's arrival, agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, in coordination with local law enforcement, effected Roy's arrest and ensured the safe recovery of the 12-year-old girl. What was he going to do? Hide her in the barracks? Anyway, the investigation persists under the joint auspice of the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the offices of Indianapolis, Charlotte, and Chicago. Young Marine making dumb, stupid mistakes. Next, how about a dying declaration you literally could not make up? In a tragic sequence of events in Flagler County, Florida, a 22-year-old dad by the name of Daniel Waterman, a New York native and expectant father, briefly emerged from a coma induced by a severe car crash to accuse his girlfriend, Leah Mumby, of intentionally causing the accident. Can you believe that? Waterman succumbed to complications from his injuries shortly thereafter. Now, according to the court documents, the crash occurred on the night of the Super Bowl back in February of 2025 along Interstate 95. Waterman, seated in the passenger seat, alleged that Mumby, then 24, and driving, uttered the words, "I don't care what happens. You'll get what you deserve," amid a heated argument. The dispute reportedly began after Mumby discovered her pregnancy and Waterman received a text message from a female acquaintance in New York, later clarified by his mother. Heather Waterman, as correspondence with a friend regarding a football game between Philadelphia and Kansas City Chiefs. Authorities state that Mumby drove recklessly, ultimately colliding with a tree. Waterman sustained critical injuries, resulting in a coma, while Mumby, also seriously hurt, survived with their unborn child, whom she later delivered. In May of this year, Waterman regained sufficient consciousness to communicate with investigators using a whiteboard. His statements implicated Mumby in deliberately causing the crash as detailed in the arrest affidavit. Waterman was transferred in July 2025 from a Florida facility to Upstate University Hospital in Syracuse, New York, for continued treatment. He died of pneumonia on October 8th of 2025. Mumby faced initial charges in July of 2025 of recklessly driving, causing serious bodily injury and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Following Waterman's death, vehicular homicide was added per the normal course of business, and the court records so indicate. Waterman's family is now pursuing legal actions to establish paternity and secure custody of the child, intending to raise her in New York with his wishes. Heather Waterman stated, "We'll do whatever we can do to bring her to us." He wanted her raised in New York with his family. Next on the docket, news we couldn't get to. In New Hampshire, a jailed man was charged with plotting to murder a woman he falsely claimed as his wife, along with her actual husband. in a bizarre scheme uncovered by police. A retired firefighter in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, appeared in court accused of attempting to shoot and kill his wife on the same day she filed for divorce. In Grafton, Wisconsin, an ex-firefighter was held on $3 million bail for trying to kill his wife shortly after her divorce, highlighting obviously a pattern of escalating domestic brutality. And a man in George County, Mississippi, received a life sentence for the 2023 murder of his wife, with the sentencing bringing closure to a long-running homicide case. And finally, in Michigan, 69-year-old Betsy McIntyre called 911 after fatally stabbing her husband of 48 years. He was found in a pool of blood in a bizarre elderly domestic homicide. On this day in legal history, October 31st, 1864, Congress admitted Nevada as the 36th state in the United States, with President Lincoln coming up for re-election and looking for supports for his proposed 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Nevada had quickly moved to meet the legal requirements for statehood, ultimately sending the entire text of the proposed state constitution to Washington by telegraph, at that time creating the longest and most expensive telegram on record. On this date in 1983, the U.S. Senate confirms Antonin Scalia to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, advancing his originalist judicial philosophy and later influencing later Supreme Court decisions on separations of power and federalism. On October 31st, 2022, the United States Supreme Court hears oral arguments in the Student for Fair Housing Admission versus Harvard, challenging affirmative action in university admissions and ultimately leading to a 2023 ruling striking down race-based policies under the Equal Protection Clause. That's right. You can't say you want everything equal and then say, well, because of this particular status, I get special status. It's not supposed to be the way it works. Remember, the cream always rises to the top, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of any sort of feature that one may have. Next, our quote of the day comes from Chief Justice John Roberts during his confirmation hearing before the United States Senate Judiciary Committee in September of 2005. Judges are like umpires. Umpires don't make the rules, they apply them. The role of an umpire and a judge is critical. They make sure everybody plays by the rules, but it is not a limited role. Nobody ever went to a ball game to see the umpire. My job is to call balls and strikes and not to pitch or bat. Here. Kind of underscores the principles that judges must impartially interpret and apply the law without interjecting personal opinions or policy preferences. And then finally, our dumb criminal. A former Arizona judge. That's right, former Arizona judge. Why? Well, she was caught on body-worn camera, acting inappropriately. In fact, please meet now soon-to-be former Judge Kristen Schaff Olson of the Yavapai County Superior Court. She was caught on video allegedly urinating in public near the courthouse plaza around 1:30 a.m. on October 4th. Now, during the encounter, the officers observed Miss Schaff Olson slurring her words and losing her balance before repeatedly stating she was waiting for an Uber. Anyway, her husband, Jason Olson, was cited for resisting and obstructing investigation after a brief altercation with officers. Schaff Olson submitted her resignation on October 6th and will step down effective as of today. You got to give her a little credit for stepping up and doing the right thing. You can't behave like a judge. You probably shouldn't be one. Anyway, judge, former judge as of today, you are a dumb criminal of the day. Doing stupid things has consequences, ladies and gentlemen. Try not to be dumb. Avoid dumbness, and guess what? You may not be a dumb criminal either. You may not lose your job. That's all we have for today. Thanks for watching, and remember, the Constitution matters.